What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Fountain City Hockey Podcast, a podcast for the fans, by a fan. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk to somebody that works more of behind the scenes for the River Dragons. He's been here since the start, and hopefully, he'll be here till the end. Please help me welcome Phillip Weaver. Welcome, Flip. I want to say thank you, and it's an honor to have you on the podcast.
Hey, good evening. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be on here.
Absolutely. So, I have a very open-ended question for you for the people out there that want to know, who is Phillip Weaver?
I guess that's a question I probably should have asked myself years ago. But first and foremost, happily married, father of two. Not sure that I'm doing the best job, but I'm always trying. My love for hockey obviously runs deep. I've been with the River Dragons since their inception, and many years with the Cottonmouths. I just completed what was my 26th season between the two teams. Small local business owner. I really don't know what else I can kind of throw out there on that one.
Hey, absolutely. What's the name of your business?
I own the jersey shop. Most of the fans probably see it advertised around the arena. We do a lot of stuff with the game night merch. I also do a lot of stuff with game jerseys. Not necessarily putting them together, so to speak. They come ready from the factory like that. But when we do get new guys in and you see them with their name and everything on the jersey when they take the ice, those are little things I do behind the scene that the jersey shop is involved in.
Okay, and they always look spectacular too, because I know sometimes you might get a trade or something like that, and the next day they're jumping on the ice. They might not even gotten in town or anything like that until that morning or something. So,
well, and that's a thing that myself, with all the years that I have in, and people like Jeff Krupp, the owner, we believe in the fact that even if a guy shows up 5 minutes before it's time to take warm-ups, we're not putting a guy out there without his name on his back. That's just a big unwritten rule, kind of no thing for us, and we believe in it and we stand by it. So you'll never see a player out there unless there's an absolute tragedy happening somewhere that one of the two of us can't get that taken care of.
Absolutely, because I know you see it from a few teams within the league. They'll have players out there with numbers but no name on the back.
Absolutely,
and it's kind of a big standout.
It is, and it is. It's one thing if the guy's kind of I hate to use the term Band-Aid, but if the guy's a Band-Aid, trying to help the team get through due to injuries, I could understand something like that. But if this guy you plan on bringing in and keeping around, I think the players also see that as the way they're being treated. It's too easy, and I know you were telling me about the things that your wife does. It's too easy to really throw something together, even last minute, if you have to. It might not look tip top and like it came from the jersey factory that way, but you can still do something, so.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one thing to be brought onto a team and just be thrown out there with a jersey on. It's another to be brought onto a team and actually show you're appreciated by your name being broadcasted out there to everybody.
Absolutely. And I would never say that those organizations that do that don't have class or anything like that, but sometimes it's perceived that way. If you see a guy out there, you feel like that organization might not be taking care of him, and he may even feel that way. He could have rolled in that afternoon and not really know anybody, and he's just kind of thinking, man, I got to go out here with the number on, and if my parents are watching on YouTube, they're not going to be able to pick me out of the crowd because there's no name, So there's things like that to come into play, and not everybody's capable of what we do. We have a lot of people on staff and behind the scenes that really jump in and take care of things, myself included. And not everybody has that, especially some of these teams that might be smaller or newer, and they just don't have the people that have, come around and dedicated their time.
Absolutely, because, I mean, you got to think some of these teams, we grew from back in the 90s, CHL, ECHL, to SPHL, and now FPHL. So it's kind of like the Civic Center, I'm pretty sure, over the time has grown with that as well.
They have. And the building was never designed for hockey, so it was and it wasn't. So it's not kept up with the times as far as the facilities that the guys really need these days. But they do a good job of trying to keep things moving and updating and doing what they can to make sure these guys have everything they need.
That's it. Now, as far as your end, like you said, a player comes in, even if it's 5 minutes before puck drop, do you bring the equipment there to be able to put that name on the jersey, or is there how would that work?
Generally, for us, we know in advance that there's going to be a guy there that they're expecting somebody to come. There's been times when we've expected a guy, and I went ahead and made things ahead of schedule. Especially if we were going to pick up a guy on the road like we did this past season. And you'll have to forgive me, I can't remember the young D-man's name that we picked up in Port Huron. But we put a bunch of stuff together for Jack and Keno to take with them on the trip up there, and they knew once they picked the guy up, they would have to do is really just get it either heat pressed or sewn on the jersey, and it would serve its purpose until they could get it back, and we could do it the right way. So we normally do things like that, and there's been times when we've spent a couple of hours putting things together, and then a guy not show up, or there's a bunch of different reasons that could happen, but Jeff and Jay and Jerome are always pretty ahead of the game, and we all stay in contact. Even times when it's the off season, the four of us talk regularly, so they're always giving me heads up, especially if we know that there's a guy that may or may not be coming. So we really don't run into too many instances where it's going to be cutting it that close trying to put something together. And if it were to happen, honestly, my shop's like 7 blocks from the Civic Center, so we could run down there and get something done in 15 or 20 minutes.
Throw something together and get him out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Behind the scenes, what all would you say that you do? Because I know you have what, 2 or 3 people that all come together for the equipment team.
As far as guys with titles, I guess you would say Jack Berry, and myself, really handle most of it. And we're really a 3-headed animal there. We can all hand off things to each other. Everybody is capable. I've kind of put a lot of my knowledge into Keno, and I think he's also learning things, from being around the guys. And I think Jeff has kind of shared a lot of his knowledge with him, and same with Jack. The 3 of us communicate real well. We've known each other for a number of years, even before all of us got involved. So we communicate. If things need to happen, we figure out a way. If it's something that I can handle while they're doing their other duties, laundry, handling practices, things like that, we all just get it done, and outside of the 3 of us, we really also have a lot of game night help that's there. People probably know the faces or the names and not realize what a lot of these people are doing down there, but there is now, and there always has been, even through all my years, there have always been a lot of people there ready to be hands-on game night.
Now, would you say, with the 3 of y'all being the main ones in play, do y'all all have y'all's own special skill that y'all handle? Like one person handles skates and helmets, like something breaks, or you handle mostly stuff to do with the jerseys, or how would, say, a skate breaks? Is it just who's available at that time?
Generally speaking, yeah. All 3 of us can handle that. Skates have really changed with the times, especially over the number of years that I've been doing this. And so if one of us knows something and the other 2 don't, we always take the time to kind of point those things out and make it a learning/teaching experience so the other guys know. I don't want to have to be there every night. I try to be there as much as I can, just for love of being with the team and love the game. But on nights that I can't be there, and especially if there's something that I might have knowledge of that these guys are still trying to pick up, I love sharing that with them, so they can feel comfortable when these kind of things come up. And it's always something small and kind of stupid and out of the way that has to be figured out. And in all honesty, an equipment manager has to be a jack of all trades. I mean, you just really got to be able to think on the fly so many times and figure out something to make it work through the next shift or get you to the next intermission and buy enough time to really do the correct work and get the correct fix done on things.
Yeah, because I mean, like you were talking about, there's even the minorest things. You got, what is it now, 19 people out playing in one game?
Yeah.
And so you got 19 people out there and all the equipment that they're wearing. If it's bound to go wrong, it's going to.
Oh, it's going to go wrong, and there'll be nights when you're anticipating and nothing happens, and there'll be nights when it's not even at the forefront of thought, and that's kind of when the wheels fall off and everything seems to break, and then on top of that, every single guy on that bench has a particular way that he likes to do things or that he wants his equipment, and those are all the little intricacies that guys like us have to figure out, and you learn them for every season, because where you still have your core guys, you're always going to have 5, 6 new guys coming in, and sometimes these guys don't like to talk. They're shy or what have you, and you got to kind of figure guys out. So it's always a learning experience, and just always trying to figure out the little things to do, like you said, to keep these guys out there, to keep them playing and make sure everything's right.
Especially now with the new roster changes. I think that the roster change came this year where you had to have a minimum of 6 rookies skating.
No, I haven't kept up with that one. So if that is a rule, I hadn't really kept up with those.
What would you, so we were talking about the way that equipment has evolved over the years. I know nowadays when it comes to the skates, they have the interchangeable blades where you can literally just press a button on the skate holder and literally just pop a new set of steel in.
Yeah, and most guys have at least 2 sets now, and we have 2, like the thing is actually made for wrenches, like for box end wrenches, and it rolls up, and so we bought a couple of those, and the blades actually slide down in each little slot, and every guy has a spare pair out there on the bench for forwards and defense. That is a change we can do right there on the bench. I know in my early years, if a guy ever had a problem and we couldn't fix it on the bench with what's called a sweep stick, we'd have to take that guy and run him off the ice and get the sharpener set up, and he would have to take the skate physically off. These guys don't even have to do that now. You can even pop the blade out and go sharpen it if you had to. But that does make things a ton easier, and it cuts out a lot of time that guys are not on the ice. The only problem that we've run into with those, and I think it's something that the skate company engineers are really going to have to look at, is there are problems with those triggers sometimes, and it can be just from buildup of ice getting inside of them. So there's a little bit of issue there, but on the whole, it's 100% improvement over just where we were 10, 15 years ago. So.
Now, sometimes you'll see the guys run off the ice. I've seen it multiple times this year where it's not an injury or anything like that, but it looks like it's something equipment-wise. What would you say that within this past year was probably the most equipment malfunction that they actually had to run off the ice and somebody run with them?
Now, things like that, when you see that, it will more than likely be a skate issue, and generally speaking, it's probably the blade holder has either cracked or broken, and that's one of the things, like, we got to get them off and we got to get that changed out. There's not really a whole lot you can do there to kind of hold that together. Mm-hmm. and get the guy through a shift. It becomes dangerous at that point, and the last thing you want to do is be responsible for a guy possibly getting injured because you didn't do your job. So things like that. Generally, anything else as far as their equipment, most guys will tell you, "Hey, I'm good until intermission." And we'll figure it out there if it's not something that we can fix on the bench. The only other time you really see somebody have to leave is if the jersey itself gets ripped. And I know it used to be a rule. I'm not sure if it still is, but they would make guys leave the ice surface with that. They didn't want them out there playing like that. And that has a tendency to happen, especially in our building. Sometimes after they've changed over from football to hockey or what have you, one of the screws in the boards might not be all the way in, and it'll snag a guy's jersey, and it'll pull it wide open. We've definitely had to run guys off and make some jersey repairs and do things like that. So,
and I'd say, a lot of this is like very, very minor that a lot of people don't think about, but you have the skate laces.
If they break out there, then we try to keep one set, because I don't know how familiar you are with skate laces, and there's a 1,000 different links and different finishes. You got them with wax, without wax, and every guy has a preference, and so we try to keep a couple of them in the toolbox on the bench, for the immediate need. But there again, you might run into something where you got to get that guy off and get a specific set for him.
That's something just as simple as that'll take them out of a shift or drop them off the ice for a few minutes.
Oh, absolutely, because you got to get that skate off and get it relaced.
Racing skates ain't easy. I've skated roller skating all my life, and if you don't know what you're doing and you're trying to go quick, going quick lacing skates can actually take longer.
Oh yeah, because if if you're trying to move too fast and you hit the wrong eyelet and you get finished and realize things are kind of out of whack, you got to pull all that back out. And that's really where I learned many years ago how to run up one side or with one side of the lace and which eyelets to hit. And I've done it enough times it kind of comes as second nature now. But for a young guy starting out that may have never done that before, and he's also feeling the pressure of needing to get that guy back out there as soon as possible. It can lead to some issues.
You said this will be 26 years, or are we going on 27?
Just finished 26. This will be 27.
So 27, going on 27 years. What year did you actually start with the cottonmouths?
98, 99.
So 98, 99. So from 98 and 99 going into the 24, 25 season, how has not only equipment, but how has being a part of the equipment team changed?
The equipment has changed drastically, especially with the introduction of dry fit materials. That really lightened the jersey. I remember back in the early days, the old jerseys and how heavy they would get from guys that would sweat hard, or even guys that poured a lot of water on themselves while drinking. Those sweaters would weigh 10 pounds at the end of the night when they took them off. I mean, it's a huge difference. It's amazing, actually. That's one of the biggest things. A lot of the other stuff is fairly traditional, as far as padding. Now that stuff has lightened up again, with the addition of the wicking material. Skates obviously are a huge difference from 26 years ago and how far they've come. Sticks as well, with all the composites. Guys are not using wood, and hell, I even remember when we had aluminum shafts and things like that, back in the day. And so that's come a long way. Obviously, the concussion technology has helped helmets come a long way. I guess on the whole, equipment has come a long way, and just the overall uniform and the durability and lightness of it, and the fact that guys are not carrying an extra 10, 15 pounds of sweat and water at the end of the night. And really, probably the person most affected out there has been the goalies, and the way that their gear has come along. Back in the days, those old leather leg pads, those things would hold 100 pounds of water. And I remember one of my first seasons, the equipment manager I worked for then, Randy Scrimshire, he decided one day, we were at Walmart or Kmart or something, and he noticed a can of Camp Dry, which is stuff you used to take and spray down like tents and stuff like that with them to kind of waterproof them. And we used to carry a lot of that stuff, and we would spray down and just soak the goalies' pads to try to keep them from being such sponges, and that really worked well back then. But now with all the new materials and things they've come along with, you don't really have to do that stuff anymore. The stuff is light, and guys can move a lot more free in it. So come a long way for sure.
The very first time I ever noticed it was on Dennis Sicard, back when the Cottonmouths and them used to play.
Right.
He got in a fight one time. Can't remember who it was with, but his jersey came off. He didn't wear shoulder pads. He wore a shoulder cotton vest. What it looked like. Like, he didn't even wear shoulder pads.
Right.
How many guys would you say back then actually basically kind of wore nothing up under their shoulders and chest?
My best point of reference, and this is because we got started within the same season or two of each other, Craig Stahl. Craig actually didn't wear the chest protection part of it. He cut the shoulder caps off of his shoulder pads, and we actually sewed them to his suspenders. So when he pulled his suspenders up, it went just to cover the cap of the shoulder, and that was that.
Lord.
And yeah, but there were guys like him, and you referenced Dennis Sicard. If I were to sit down and think about it, I could probably come up with a couple other names. But there were a lot of guys who, when their role was the tough guy, or if they knew they were going to be fighting, the less they had on, the better. So, and they wanted it to pop off like that. And I think a lot of those guys, especially because all of us are around the same age, they grew up watching guys like Bob Probert, and they really wanted, when a guy grabbed them, they wanted everything to pop off so he would have nothing to grab after that, and it was just going to be a good bare knuckle brawl.
I actually just got off the conversation with Doug Mann about how much hockey has actually changed. And down here in the South, I didn't really get really big into hockey until 2012, 2013, when the Cottonmouths were really on their downfall.
Right.
But I would go to like games every now and again when my parents would take me and all that, and everybody in the South loves the fights, loves the hits.
Yeah.
But now over the years, you've gotten into more skill, more speed. You still get your hits and your fights, but that really enforcer or that really tough guy role is almost weaved itself all the way completely out of hockey.
Yeah, it has and it hasn't. And this is the thing, and we were talking about this not too long ago. If you look at it, the same thing at the NHL level, and I think it's really had a trickle down effect all the way to single A level like us.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to be that tough guy, you have to also be skilled enough to be on the roster. Otherwise, you have to be effective in more ways than just one. Because 20 years ago, when other teams would come into your building, they knew who the tough guy was, and they knew that he was only going to see probably 3 or 4 shifts a night. You could pretty much bet on the fact that he was not going to be the most skilled guy out there. He wasn't a threat to score goal. They knew once he came over the boards and was on the ice, he was going to be looking for somebody to fight. Now, also back then, both teams had that guy. Generally, they were going to end out there at the same time, and there was going to be a fight. But yeah, like you said, nowadays they're a dying breed. Unfortunately, I hate it for the number of years that I've put in and the guys I've gotten to know and still stay in touch with. He was a policeman out there, and he kept all the other guys honest. With the way they've done away with so much of it today, that's why you see guys getting hurt so much more, is because nobody is afraid to take a cheap shot because they know that there's not going to be a 6'3", 215-pound guy to come out there and just beat their head in, and that's the game has evolved to that, and that's one of the unfortunate sides to me that I believe, and I'm sure there's some people out there who would agree with me, and there's also people out there that actually hate that idea. They want hockey to be pure and no fights, but out of all the sports that I've worked over the years, and it's truly a gentleman's game, and people respected that, and we've lost a lot of that with the evolution of the players.
Absolutely. And just like you said, police and the ice, I remember coming down the last few years of the Cottonmouths, we had a guy, I forget what his actual name is, but his nickname was the Sheriff.
It's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah. But that was his nickname, was the Sheriff, and you knew when he came out there, if something happened, he was going to handle it.
Yeah, 100%. And that's all the guys in all my years. There's always been a handful that they knew that was their role, and when they got tapped on the shoulder and it was time to go, they knew what they were going out there to do. And like I said, that almost doesn't exist anymore, and it's sad. And I say that because I did a lot of my early years in the old school type hockey. Being around old school guys, I learned a lot from Phil Roberto, who was the GM of the Cottonmouths, early when I started, and he would talk about his playing days in the 70s and all this stuff. And I mean, it was great to listen to, and it made a lot of sense back then. And a lot of that stuff has faded away over the years, and it's a shame.
Just in your opinion, because this is really opinion based, would you say that the evolution of the game, because I mean, it trickled down, like you said, it trickled down into the SPHL with the Cottonmouths. It stopped. Just from my experience from watching in 2012, you could tell every year you stopped seeing the rough and tough guys and went into more of a skill-based speed, and you would only have maybe one guy out there that you knew if he stepped on the ice, it was go time.
Yeah.
I mean, in your opinion, could you say that is one thing that stopped putting fans in the building?
Quite possible. I would have to agree that there's probably some percentage of it because, like you said, with the hockey coming to the South, and the majority of the people, they wanted to go to a fight and a hockey game broke out. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so, but in cities like ours, where teams have managed to exist for as long as they have in one place, you've got a generation of people that have now grown up and watched it, and they're more interested in the speed and skill and scoring of it now than when they were the 5-year-old kid getting exposed to their first hockey game, and it was the greatest thing when somebody fought, So it's evolved that way for sure. There again, like I said, not something I'm particularly fond of. It's nice that there are guys who can do both jobs these days, but they're so few and far between. It's like you said, you might get a fight one night, and you might not get a fight for the next 2-3 nights, and a lot of teams know that you're not going to get that. And also, when teams come in and they've signed a guy who's notorious for fighting or being tough, most of the time the coaches are telling them, hey, let's leave that guy on the ice because he's going to do something stupid and we're going to get a power play. So they'll tell him, don't go out there and engage this guy because, he'll probably beat your head in and you're going to end up in the box with the guy as well. So let's leave him out there and let's get a power play out of it.
Yeah.
So that's,
I mean, I will say, because like I said, me getting into hockey really 2012, 2013, and not going just for the big hits and the fights, but actually watching and learning the game and learning why certain stuff is done. That's what really drew me in even more. Like, yeah, it's fun watching the fights. It's fun watching the big hits, but watching the skill on the ice. And then I'll bring up a player from this past year, Swan. He wasn't the best player we had by any means. He wasn't the fastest, and he definitely wasn't the biggest, but he forechecked really, really well. He could pass the puck. He could score goals sometimes. But then at the same time, you never knew when a fire was going to get lit up under his butt, and he would take on 6'7" Swanson.
Yeah.
And absolutely ragdoll him.
Well, and guys like Swan, even for a young kid, he really came in and he knew what his role was. And you have some guys that I've seen over the years that are just not ready to accept that, and they think that they're still capable of doing this, that, or the other, and they're not ready to step in that role. And I think he came in day one that way, so it really benefited him to have that mindset. And you may have noticed by watching him, one of the best penalty killers we had.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Anytime we were on the PK, Jerome trusted him to go out there. And like you said, he's not the fastest guy, not always a threat to score. But if you watch him, positionally, he knew where to get, blocked a lot of shots. He just went out there and did his job. And like you said,
he had a sense for the puck.
He did. And if things got out of hand, he also knew that he was the one going to step up and have to take on whichever guy was messing with his teammates. Did his job well. That's one of those kids that you love to have every year.
Yeah. And I will say this past year, because I moved up to Atlanta in 21, so I'm having to watch a lot of YouTube.
Right.
And so whenever I get to go down to visit family, I always come to games. I always try to make sure that there's games at home that whenever I get to come down. I will say I've had more fun watching this season than really I have any season. And the only reason why is because not only did you have Swan, but you had other guys too that out of nowhere a fire could get lit up over them.
Yeah.
You had, of course, Jay's always out there, and if he gets a fire lit up under him, you never know what's going to happen. I already know y'all got to buy a new bucket for your pucks, but you had Carter Shinkarek, which he's a veteran.
Yep.
Kyle Moore, he does a lot of that picking, trying to draw penalties, but at the same time he can hold his own.
100%.
Kirk Underwood, he not somebody that you see ever fight, and I've seen him fight for the first time this year.
I've seen several out of him over the years, but there again, 1,000% team guy for somebody like Kirk. He's going to do whatever it takes. If he's out there, and let's just say a guy like Swan's not, he's going to take care of business, and he doesn't mind losing a fight if he has to prove his point. And that's why the guys and that's why the crowd love him.
And speaking about Kirk being a team player, wasn't this his first year on defense? Like as an actual true defenseman?
Yes.
And to me, he did an amazing job.
He did a great job back there. Like I said, he was asked to do a job, no complaints, stepped back there and did a fantastic job all year long.
That's amazing. So, Nathan Bockwell.
Love him.
I do too. It was his fire and intensity just to, the way that he played, the way that he hustled, and then you would say some people seem like they're scared to either take a hit or lay a hit. He showed no fear.
No.
Three or four guys be around the goalie. You'd see him be the only one go in there.
Mm-hmm.
Move. That's my goalie.
Absolutely. Love every bit of that about that kid. Like you said, fearless. Worried about him a little bit after his injury. Wasn't as bad as it looked from that standpoint. definitely scary.
Mm-hmm.
And I know his first couple games back after that, he was kind of shaking that off a little bit, but overall, I think he really shook that off, and like you said, played some tough minutes all year long, and guys didn't get away with much when he was out there. So
It didn't, because I remember I was actually at the game whenever the injury happened. Didn't he come back the next night and play, or was it
no,
a
I
couple
think
of nights later?
he had about a week off because if I remember correctly, yeah, we had a game the next night at home. He was out there, and I think he sat out when they made their road trip the following week. And it was all precautionary from what I remember.
Absolutely.
Um, so yeah, I think he sat out about a week, maybe a little over a week, and then came back. Not too long after that.
And his very first game that he came back, he got in a fight.
Did he?
Yeah, because everybody was like, "Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no."
Yeah. Well, and that's one of those things, you'll from being around guys, that's the kind of thing they'll do to get themselves back into it, and remove any of that fear they may have from injuries or what have you, so they can get right back into being the player that they are.
Yeah, because for him, it didn't seem like the injury really affected him. He took his injury, which was, like you said, scary, and he came back like it never happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he
And
didn't
I
miss a
mean,
beat.
it can go horribly and go the other way for guys too. I've seen it both ways. So
How would you say, because like you said, you've been around 26 years now, when you hear the team chemistry aspect of the game, with especially in minor pro hockey, with so many trades and new people coming in, new people going out, how hard is it to actually keep a team chemistry going, especially in this level of minor hockey?
I've seen them be a group and cohesive from day one. I've seen them take half a season to grow into that group. It really is all about the mix that you have going on in the locker room, and that's also where it all starts. Because I can tell you, I've seen the whole team be together and be friends outside of the rink. I've seen them be individuals. I've seen them have their separate little groups. But it all starts and it all really matters right there in that locker room when all 19, 20 of those guys can get along and everybody takes constructive criticism well, whether it be from guys like Jerome or Jay or Josh Petrantonio, and how they respond. The room really sets the tone for how everything's going to go and how the year's going to go. And yeah, that's where it all works. That's where it rolls from there out onto the ice, and that's the product that everybody sees.
This year definitely didn't end how we wanted it to.
Not at all.
Definitely didn't end how we seen it ending with how good our team was. But in your opinion, is this the best hockey team that you've seen in Columbus from an overall standpoint?
Definitely up there. I'd probably say it'll be in my top three. We've had some really good teams. I'm thinking myself on ones that I've been with to win a championship and ones that I've been with to lose a championship, because literally 2 out of my first 3 years, 99, 2000, 2000, 2001, we went to championships both of those years in the CHL. 99, 2000, we lost in Game 7 in our rink, and those guys were great. And there again, it was a season that didn't end like we wanted it to. Yeah, this year was definitely a great group of guys, and I hope we get a lot of them back. The group that we had in 21 for the COVID shortened season was a really awesome group. Didn't have as much time to get to know those guys, but I still keep in touch with a lot of them. So that was a good group. And like the Cottonmouth, the 2011 2012 was probably my most favorite. I still stay in regular touch with a lot of those guys, and that was just a group on the ice, in the room, wherever you were. I mean, you knew that all those guys were together and on the same page. So that's probably my number one, and I'd say this year was probably number two.
We have an MVP on our team this year of the league. J-Mac could literally probably go play anywhere, SPHL, ECHL, if he wanted to. But he decided to stay in Columbus, and I know he's older. He has that experience in different leagues. How much of a role model, how much of a idol type person, I guess you could say, do the rookies and the younger guys look up to him, especially with his age and how he performed this year? How much do you think he rubs off on them?
A lot. Between, I would really say guys like him and guys like Petro, they really leave marks on a lot of the rookies. Josh, with his leadership, I think really leaves a mark on a lot of guys. J Mac, like you said, a veteran, years in. He's played in a lot of different leagues. The guy has done it all, and I mean, you have to respect that. And he's such a humble guy in the room as well. And you know, most of the time you see a guy that's at this level and puts up points like him, and you probably think, "Oh man, he's just a jackass." But he truly isn't. He's probably one of the most humble guys I've ever met for what he's capable of, and the young kids see that, and it speaks volumes about those two guys, about their level of professionalism and the things that they do to set the tone and the example for all these guys that come in.
Yeah, I know. I was watching a clip, just like you said, J Mac's humble, and he's not one to mess with. I was watching a clip on the Facebook page earlier of J Mac ragdolling a guy.
I believe that.
There was, or it wasn't like a little meme of "you don't mess with me" or something like that, and it was J Mac ragdolling a guy, and then 2 or 3 of our other guys coming in to help out with him. I thought it was pretty fun. I was like, yeah, go after the old man, and you'll see what the old man has.
Yeah, definitely. There's always a couple sneaky ones out there like that.
In your opinion, who would you say this year has been the most fun to work with? Like, who have you made that like just special? And it could even be a few people, a special connection with that you had this year on the team.
Probably Carter Shinkarik. Like we kind of settled in our own little things, our own little handshakes, whatever, you know, and you know that there's always one or two guys that I kind of have fun with like that, and so definitely him. I got to know him, and amazing guy. I hope he comes back. I really like to see him here again.
He's a veteran too, right?
Yes, he is.
He's played all the way up to the. Has he made? Did he make ECHL?
You know, I'm not 100% on that.
Okay.
I'd have to look. I'm sure he's one of those guys I've probably checked out over the years, but I couldn't tell you right now off the top of my head.
This has definitely been a blast.
Absolutely.
I just want to say thank you. It was an honor speaking with you. I hope business keeps booming. And my last question for you: how did you get the nickname Flip? And who gave it to you?
Randy Scrimshire gave that to me. Either probably my first or second year, and if I remember correctly, he was trying to abbreviate Phillip and come up with something, because I never really had a nickname. I had a nickname as a kid when I played football and baseball back in the mid '80s as a young kid. They called me Boom Boom, and I told him right off the bat I would never use that out of respect for Jerome. And I even wore the number 16 too, which is crazy. Me and Jerome talk about this all the time. I changed my number once I started working for the team and I got to know Jerome. I stopped wearing 16. All the years I've put in working with Jerome, it's been such a respect thing for him. I think I'd take a bullet for that guy. I love him to death. But Randy was trying to think of something to call me, and somehow Phillip got shortened to Flip, and it stuck, and it's been that way ever since. And most people that call me that only come from the hockey aspect of my life. That really doesn't bleed over too much into regular everyday life. But here in the last couple of years, it's started to move over into everything. So I kind of get called that just about everywhere I go.
Hey, something stick with it. And
I know.
Seems like after 26 years, you've made a name for yourself within Columbus hockey.
I hope I have. I hope I've left an impression, and I hope I've done the right things all these years.
Now, again, I want to say thank you. It was an honor. I appreciate it. Maybe we can do this again soon, maybe midway through the season or something like that, see how things go and talk about the team.
Absolutely. I'd love to. I appreciate you having me.